Dennis Bevington of the New Democratic Party.
Well, when you look at it, we have a water strategy now that our government of Northwest Territories has developed, and which is a very good model and has been received rave reviews around the country. But what we do need to do with water is to go back to those the transboundary master agreement that was struck on the Mackenzie Basin in '95 and finish the bilateral agreements between Alberta and Northwest Territories, between Alberta and BC. Fundamentally, that will give us, in the Northwest Territories, control over quantity and quality of water that is being issued in the system. So that's one step. We also believe that the oil sands we have to slow down on the development of the oil sands until the regulatory system kicks in a sufficient way to clean up the air emissions and the potential devastating impacts of the flow of the...
That's time. Thanks, Mr. Bevington. And moving on now to Sandy Lee of the Conservative Party.
Thank you. The Conservative government has a plan to balance the economic sustainability and business development. Right here around Yellowknife, we have contamination in Giant Mine. Dennis Bevington, as MP for Western Arctic, voted against the money to clean up the site. He's also voted against the money to set up a research station for $80 million in the high Arctic that would give us sound information about our environmental issues. He's voted against $8 million over 2 years to bring clean energy technologies to North. So I think it's important that you have a plan, but when there's money in the budget to take action, that you support those initiatives. And Conservative government will continue to work on balancing the environmental sustainability and business development.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. And candidate for the New Democratic Party.
Well, we've seen what the Liberals offered up in devolution. We've seen what the Conservatives offered up on devolution. In the next Parliament, the New Democratic Party has a role in government which has some particular interest right now. We'll see a better deal than that.
Right, and the final word on this question goes to Conservative candidate Sandy Lee.
It is not factually correct to say that AIP was signed bilaterally between GNWT and Canada. It was also signed by Métis Nation as well as IRC. Unless somebody thinks that's not Aboriginal organizations in Northwest Territories. When Prime Minister was here, he met with Aboriginal leaders and he made it clear that he will work with the Aboriginal governments toward the final agreement, and invitation is always there at the table for all leaders to come on board and to work toward the final agreement. Everybody could say that this is not the best deal, or we should negotiate for another 100 years, but in the meantime, we're losing out on hundreds of millions of dollars, and maybe somebody here could laugh off $200 million, but I tell you, as a Minister of Health and Social Services, where I had to say no to somebody every day for a 10,000 grand, 5,000 grand, millions of dollars is a lot of money. It's time to get together and negotiate.
Thanks, Ms. Lee. All right, we are going to turn things over now to Elizabeth McMillan. She's got a question from the candidate for the Western Arctic.
Well, quite clearly, in the budgets where the deficit came up, this was supported by the Liberals, of course, and it was about the recession. So we did go through a recession, and we did expend considerable sums of money in stimulus programs, which left us with a deficit. But what are we doing about it? That's the important thing. What we should be doing about it is putting back the corporate income tax rate to 19.5%. It's not going to scare anybody off our resources.
And our Conservative candidate is Sandy Lee.
Globe and Mail editorial today said that Prime Minister Harper's accomplishment in getting us out of the economic recession is understated. It is a huge accomplishment. We have a deficit balancing budget plan by 2014. And what we should be really afraid of is the fact that the Green Party, the Liberal Party, and NDP Party is going to fund their programs by introducing cap-and-trade carbon tax in the Northwest Territories and all over Canada. They're going to raise $21 billion on the backs of taxpayers, and NWT is going to be the cash cow for the carbon tax, so that we are going to accomplish the Made in Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa policy, just like the gun registry. It's going to raise the cost of gas, heating oil, power rates all over the Northwest Territories, and #1 issue in Northwest Territories is a high cost of living, and that's how NDP is going to pay for their $70 billion program.
And thank you, Sandy Lee. And our final... Go ahead.
Well, thank you. And once again, yes, we don't want to cap programs that are ineffective. If we need to deal with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission so that it works. It's part of the healing process that Canada, all of us have invested in, not just with money, but with our sense of what is right and proper.
Conservative Party, Sandy Lee.
Thank you, Dennis. I have to keep on correcting your record, because in fact it was you who voted against the funding for Aboriginal Healing Foundation. It is the Prime Minister Harper that apologized, that offered the national apology in House of Commons, that began the process of this Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I have talked to the Prime Minister during his visit, and I am as MP will work on providing extra resources for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission work in Inuvik, the national meeting in Inuvik, and to NWT and the support providers have to be there to also to help with those who are coming out and speaking and going through the grieving process. So I will be in support of providing extra funding.
All right, thanks for that, Ms. Lee. Dennis, now, the question is, do the candidates support the Mackenzie Valley Pipeline and the all-weather highway from Tuktoyaktuk to Wrigley? And if so, what are you going to do to support this if elected? I feel the time is right to do both of these projects, as everyone knows the mines and those jobs won't last forever. That's from Irvin Gruben up in Tuktoyaktuk. And we'll begin our answers with the candidate for the Conservative Party. We've got Sandy Lee. Go ahead.
Prime Minister Harper is the first Prime Minister in 40-odd years to invest money in the highways, new highways in the Northwest Territories. He put $150 million in the budget, and the coalition of NDP and the Liberal and Bloc brought down the government and not allowing this to see the light of the day. Prime Minister said when he was in Yellowknife that he will put this back in the budget, and we would like to see the work begin in the fall. I have to disagree with somebody who's saying that this is the House of Commons approach when we are challenging the incumbent on his voting records. We are asking the people to vote for us, to represent them in the House of Commons, and we have to be answerable to the votes we take in the House. Do you vote with your party, regardless of what is good for the territories, and have dozens and dozens housing money, health money, energy projects, Aboriginal educational funding, where the NDP MP Bevington voted against the Northwest Territories?
Thanks, Ms. Lee.
Having sat on the Mackenzie Valley Environmental Impact Review Board and done numerous environmental assessments in reasonable lengths of time, including things like the BHP expansion project, I think the system can work. What we have in the system is a failure to complete the land use plans, which is something that even McCrank said was #1 on the list to get it done. And those include interim land use plans in the Deitcho. The second thing that has to be done with that is to cut out the time that these permits are spending in Ottawa on the minister's desk. This is one of the biggest problems. It's not in the Northwest Territories. It's down there in Ottawa, where the federal minister just simply can't move these things through fast enough. And when it comes to appointments right now, the appointments on these boards have become so political that board members are telling me that this thing is not working anymore because of the political nature of these appointments.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bevington. And we've got Sandy Lee from the Conservative Party.
Thank you. Conservative government is the first government to invest money to streamline the regulatory process. It also increased the credit for mining exploration. The wildlife legislation and the EMBER, the Mackenzie Land and Water Board and Mekoji Board, they're all under federal legislation, and we respect those legislation and their jurisdiction. But there's a lot we can do operationally and process-wise to make the process more predictable, more clear, more efficient, and more effective. And the Government of Canada, under Prime Minister Harper, has invested money to oversee that, and I respect the process. We can do better and be more efficient, and while at the same time respect the Aboriginal governments and all of the legislation that are in place as a result of land claims and health governments.
All right, thanks to all our candidates for their thoughts on that issue. And
the short answer is no. And I have to tell you that being a Minister of Health and Social Services for the last 3.5 years, working with various Conservative ministers and looking at the strong and decisive and visionary actions that Prime Minister Harper has taken for the North and the interest he has shown, the visits he has done. He went to Tuktoyaktuk and talked to the people, and they told him, we want the road from Inuvik to Tuk, and he put it in the budget. No other Prime Minister has done that. He has invested 33% more in healthcare. He is interested in the North, and I feel, given all the demands we have in our system, we are crazy not to partner with the Prime Minister who is interested in the North, and I joined the Conservative Party because that is the right party for the North, and I am committed to the party. Thank you. Well, I come from the consensus style of government, and we have our arguments, but we don't bicker the way the House of Commons do, and I can't speak from the experience, but I have to tell you there are so many pressing issues in the Northwest Territories that our people are looking for, that I would rather that my MP fights for the Northwest Territories and for our people and our programs, and I'd rather see fighting for our issues than falling asleep on the job.
And we will give Dennis Bevington a 30-second chance at a rebuttal to some comments. Go ahead.
Well, the House of Commons is an interesting place. And I stand in the top 15% of people that speak in the House of Commons. You can check the site, how they vote. They count them, the words that you speak there. So I'm pretty active in the House of Commons. I work very hard. I'm on the road 250 days of the year. And I am a human being like everyone else. And I enjoy working.
We're going to have to cut things off there. Thank you very much for that, all of our candidates. Sandy Lee.
I have to say that it is the Conservative government that raised the Northern residence reduction for the first time in 20 years, and Dennis Bevington once again voted against that. And if you tell me I can't say that, it's either his vote doesn't matter or it doesn't count. And what we really do need to worry about with respect to cost of living is that the carbon tax that's in the NDP platform, and NDP is saying that they're going to implement this, will raise $21 billion from carbon tax. It will put our cost of living in the North through the roof. We need airplanes, we travel far, we use gas, we are diesel-based communities. The government of the Northwest Territories subsidizes power rates. Our seniors and elders in Colville Lake, in Tulita, and Wulukaktok, they pay hundreds of dollars on just being able to power. And that is gotta be the biggest concern. All of the Liberal Party, the Green Party, NDP Party supports cap and trade carbon tax. And it's gonna devastate our economy.
Thank you, Ms. Lee.